I think this leads to our next question in terms of how this plays in organizational life, because many of our listeners today have roles in organizations where they may have more conversations, and they or they wish they were having more conversations about this weaponization issue and the risks that you just so clearly laid out. So let's talk about impact in organizations and kind of the why behind us addressing weaponization. Why should inclusive leaders and their organizations care about these attacks on DEI? And what's the impact, maybe, what's the impact that these events have on those of us who are doing this work in organizations, and what can we do about it in the organization?
Yeah. The primary impact that these recent attacks have on DEI is it delegitimizes the work that we're doing in the minds of leaders, and it lowers the trust that not only
Right.
leaders, but also the employees that we're working with have in us. That's a challenge for sure. And I think, being very honest here, it exposes some critical flaws in the way that we do DEI work within organizations.
Mm.
Because in an ideal world, DEI work within organizations would be so rigorous, disciplined, and straightforward that you could slander it all you wanted in the news media, and leaders would say, yeah, that's absolutely not what we're doing, right?
Mm.
We know what DEI is about. Unfortunately, partially because of our responsibility as practitioners, partially because of not all of us being clear about what it is DEI work is, there's enough room for that seed of doubt and distrust to take root. And what I mean by this is not every DEI practitioner is able to very clearly articulate why, in an organizational sense, they're doing this work and why organizations need to be invested in it. Sure, there's the cases, right? The so-called business case for diversity, where if you do DEI work, you'll increase your bottom line. And then there's a moral case for diversity. You do DEI work because it's the right thing to do. But remember, in the beginning of the conversation, I talked about efficacy. People will take action when they know exactly what it is to do, what they're going to do, how they're going to do it, why and when and in what way. And we just haven't established that with DEI, right? People don't exactly know what the work is. I talk with so many organizations where they say DEI is bringing in a speaker to talk
Right.
about
Yeah.
race. Not really sure why, but that's what DEI is. And as practitioners, I really think it's our responsibility to push back against sentiments like that, not because they're malicious, but because they're simply incomplete. And when you have such flimsy arguments for DEI, that makes these kinds of external attacks really, really effective in stripping away organizations' commitments to this work. Right. I was talking to you during our prep call about Bud Light and about the recent controversies that they've gotten into because of their partnership with a trans influencer. And they played things probably the worst possible way, in that when they were attacked externally, they backed off, did nothing, reversed their commitments, and then punished the people who made that partnership happen. And then they were and now they're getting attacked by everyone because folks on the right are saying, culture war stuff. I can't believe you'd work with trans people. You're so woke. And then folks on the left are saying you're not sticking by your values, right? And they're losing out in every way possible. I think a lot of organizations are in this very brittle place where they've said we care about DEI, but they can't operationalize a single thing about that commitment. They have no theory of change. They have no set of hypotheses around how to get from their point A to point B. All they have is a loose, vaguely related collection of initiative and events. That's it. That's their entire DEI strategy. When you have something that's that brittle, then of course it's going to snap when it gets a bit of pressure put on it, right? And for the organizations that I work with, this is something that I was itching to say when you brought up, for individuals and or organizations, what can we do? I focus a lot on helping them understand what the reality is like in terms of diversity, equity, and inclusion within their own organizations, their own departments, and their own teams. I focus a lot on just making sure that they understand what challenges they're fixing. I approach every survey, by the way, with the caveat, I don't know what we're going to find. And I will always be open to the possibility that what we find is no inequity, no injustice, no exclusion. Maybe we run a survey that genuinely finds that everything is incredible, in which case you don't need me. I'll just say goodbye because you've built an incredible organization. That's always a possibility. I'm open to that. And in return, if we find that there are some challenges in belonging, challenges in retention rates, challenges in promotion rates, challenges in attrition, you name it, then you will agree to work in good faith with me to address it. And I find that leaders, when they have that information to work with, are like, it's almost like you flip a switch, they light up. They say, oh my gosh, now I have something to work on. I have some real stuff. I thought this DEI business was just this amorphous, abstract thing where you just come in and you say, like, don't mistreat Black people. But now I have actual numbers of, broken down by race of how different groups experience the workplace. I can't believe that things are so different for this group compared to that group. Why is this happening? How can we solve this? What do we do about that? And now I'm like, now you're thinking like a practitioner, right? Like suddenly, just because we're able to have this common language of data and information, you're able to, almost without any prompting, cut through the noise and say, now I understand what we're working with. What can we do to fix it? And I say, now we can get to work, right? Like we've just, by the simple act of aligning on what it is that's happening on a simple shared reality, we've already cut through the noise. And that's so powerful.